Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 364, and today's date is May 12th, 2014, and the title of this episode is, Why is the U.S. State Department shipping explosives to unknown locations? Well, we have to look at the big picture here. We understand that the United States central bankers are in many different areas of the world. I mean, Ukraine, we look at that, we see that they wanted to capture the entire country of Ukraine. Their plan is falling apart. They're losing Ukraine piece by piece. They are having referendums. They're moving over to Russia. So their plan to put Ukraine on the EU system, to have them join NATO, and to have ships move in and have ports in the Black Sea is kind of falling apart at this time. And all they have left right now is the west of Ukraine. They don't have the production, they don't have the wealth, and they are completely, their plan is completely falling apart there. In the Middle East, we're seeing the same thing happen, and we're seeing the same thing happen in Central Africa. And we understand, of course, in Syria, to overthrow Assad, this has completely fallen apart, and they've been trying to do everything they possibly can. They're even bringing up the chemical weapons attack false flag events again to make everyone believe that Assad is still using chemical weapons. They're shipping down massive amount of weapons and money to the opposition. They already indicated that the opposition now is the, government of Syria at this time. And we can see that with everything that they're doing, nothing is working out. The world is waking up to what they are doing, and we can see that they're being pushed into the corner of the room. And the only way out of this is to have some type of an event. And this is why, with this report, that the U.S. State Department is shipping explosives to unknown locations is very important, because they are about to do something very big. Because what is left here? I mean, we understand in Libya, the Libyan government, the puppet regime there, called out and said, listen, we need international help, and that gave the United States a foot in the door to bring in troops and to have NATO come in, to have the UN come in and help out there, because the people of Libya are taking over the country. But if we look around, this is really getting out of hand for them, and everything is falling apart. And the economy here in the United States is completely deteriorating every single day, and it's getting worse. Europe is a complete disaster, and it's going to be like a domino effect. It's going to start in Europe, it's going to spread all over the place, and it's going to finally hit the United States, and everything's going to start collapsing one by one. And of course, we always know that before the collapse, what they try to do is they go after everyone's money wherever they possibly can. And this is why they're coming up with the new laws like FATCA. They're going across the ocean looking at the bank accounts, taxing those people who are working in a company in another country and living in another country but have a U.S. passport. And we can see that people are saying, listen, I can't be taxed twice here. I just can't make it, so I will renounce my citizenship. And the United States government is going to continually go after more and more money, because they do not have the revenue coming in to sustain the debt and everything that they're trying to do at this point. And what we are seeing right now is on November 1st, the Internet Tax Freedom Act is due to expire. And this was put into place back in 1998, and it was renewed about 3 times. And this prohibits taxes that discriminate against the Internet. Basically, you really can't apply taxes to the Internet, and we see this is coming up. And what they would like to do is not have this law in place, so they can completely tax everything on the Internet and bring in an additional revenue stream. And we're going to have to see what happens. This is coming up again, and if this goes forward, you will see taxes pretty much everywhere. Every time you turn on your computer and enter into the Internet, you will be taxed. Going to certain sites, you most likely will be taxed. Making purchases, you'll be taxed. And we will have to see how this plays out in the next months ahead here. Now, we understand that the housing market is pretty much imploding on itself right now. And out of Market Watch, they had a very interesting article where they talked about the millennials and how they're hurting the real estate market. And of course they are, because the millennials make up the youth of America from 18 to 29. Those people that are coming out of college or just graduating high school, they have a very difficult time finding work out there. They look around, they can't find work. They've been sending resumes out. A couple of reports back, I discussed how many students are looking for work but cannot find work. And I think it's around 80% or so. They're sending out resumes, nothing's coming back, and they're just stuck here. And this went on to say that these are the reasons why the real estate market is not going to go anywhere. And actually, it's going to make it worse as time goes on. It's because the millennials have lack of savings, less than perfect credit, and stifling loads of student loan debt, and they are continually making it harder and harder for them to get anywhere. And this is true. I see this. I see that these youth who are coming out of college, I mean, if you have a student loan and you've been trying to work and you've been sending out your resume and you have no income coming in, you can understand that they're not going to save the money. They're not going to have any money to put down on a house. They're not going to have any money to go and purchase things in the stores like electronics, TVs, DVD players. They're not going to do any of this. And this is getting worse and worse as time goes on, because if this group of students graduating this year can't find a job and they're working part-time, or they can't find work at all and they're living with their parents, what's going to happen with the next wave and the wave after this? It's getting worse. It's not getting better. And this goes on to say that the absence of young adults from the housing market continues to put a dent in the home ownership rate, which dropped to about 64.8% in the first quarter. The unemployment rate for 18 to 29-year-olds is around 15%. Now, these are the government numbers. I'm going to say this is more like around 50% or so for real unemployment, because if you're looking at 80% who cannot find work after graduating college, it is way higher than 15% here. 29% of young adults younger than 35 live with their parents, according to the Gallup poll results. They have insufficient assets to cover even a 5% down payment. And this is why we see the government now instructing, and the Fed, instructing the banks to lower the deposit rate on purchasing a home. They went from 20 to 25% down to 5%. Some are at 3%, and there are even some at 0%, because they're starting to realize, oh my God, these youths, they have no work. They have no money saved, the ones that are working, because they're not getting the same salary, and they just can't buy a house. So we're going to really have to give the house away just to get these houses moving here. And people with student loan debt also have more education, which should pay off in higher incomes in the future and make them great mortgage applicants. But when they're first starting out, having more student loan debt makes it harder to get a mortgage, and paying loan installments each month makes it more difficult to save for a down payment. And this is why we see the government out there modifying and deferring student loan payments, because they're starting to realize, which they kind of knew all along, that these students cannot find work and they're defaulting on their student loans. So they're there saying, listen, if you need help, we'll help you reorganize and modify your loan and make the payments longer, make it so you don't have to make payments right now. And the government receives so many people applying for this that they were getting overloaded. And what we're seeing right now is that in 2012, 1.3 million students who graduated from a four-year college, or 71%, has student loan debt, up from 1.1 million in 2008 and 900,000 in 2004. So the number of students that come out of school have more and more debt. They have to take out the student loans, and it's getting worse as time goes on. So they can't find jobs, they have more debt, they have no disposable income, they're living with their parents, and 80% of them cannot find work. This is going nowhere. This is going to completely implode on itself, and there is no way out. And this is why the Fed has instructed those hedge funds and investment companies to continually buy those homes in cash, because they need to keep the bubble inflated. Once those companies stop and they back off, which some of them are and some of them aren't, we are going to see this housing market completely implode on itself, because there's no Americans left to buy these homes. We have to remember, in the last 2008 crash, their credit is ruined. They had a foreclosure or a short sale. They lost their job, 38% of the wealth down the toilet, and right now they're working part-time, and they're just trying to make ends meet by buying food, paying rent, and keeping everything up right now, and they're not looking for any extra purchases at this time. Now, out in the UK, we see that David Cameron is out there, and he's saying that taxes will have to rise unless officials are giving new powers to raid people's bank accounts. So he's saying that they're running out of money, basically, and they're not having the revenue come in. So what we have to do is either raise taxes, and if those people don't pay their taxes, we need to go right into their bank accounts and take that money out. I mean, this is scary, having the government, allowing them to have access to everyone's account and having them have the ability to remove funds is quite scary. And everyone in the UK should be like, no, we cannot let this happen. And again, all private Western central banks that are in trouble, that have a huge amount of debt, and that's pretty much Europe, UK, United States, what we're seeing is a huge tax grab at this time. And when we see France, we see Italy, Spain, they're raising their taxes, going into the Social Security funds. We see the United States going all over the world trying to find more and more revenue. They're looking at now internet taxes. They're looking at imposing other taxes, of course, with Obamacare, with climate change coming up. So we can see this is the end game. They're looking to get as much as they possibly can to prop the system up a little bit longer until they can get that war started. Okay, now Christine Lagarde was out there, and she's saying this whole Ukraine situation is posing a possible threat to the global economy. Well, of course, they didn't get their way. They thought they were going to bring in and capture Ukraine, bring in the IMF, give huge amounts of loans there, and everything would just be fine, and the system would be propped up a little bit longer. But that didn't work out, and of course now they're worried. They're looking around the world. They're in Africa. They're in the Middle East. They've tried Ukraine. They're running out of places to go. China, Russia, a direct threat to the US dollar and the EU system. They see it collapsing. There's no way out here, and this is why they're saying that this whole thing is a threat to the global economy. I should say the Western global economy here. And she went on to say that the crisis in Ukraine posed danger and it was extremely difficult to establish its level, she said. She said the IMF loan of $17 billion was aimed to win back investor trust in Ukraine and to establish financial stability. Well, we know this $17 billion was not going to be used for the people to help. It was going to go to the bankers. It was going to be used to purchase gold for the Federal Reserve. They're using Ukraine as a proxy because the Federal Reserve owes countries a huge amount of gold because they're asking for their gold back. So we can see that this whole thing was not set up to help the people, to create financial stability. It was to put the country into debt, to steal and rob the natural resources of Ukraine, to put Ukraine to have them join the NATO forces, to capture the ports on the Black Sea, to have a strategic location right on the border of Russia. This was the whole point, and now they are worried, and this is why they're coming out with these statements here. Moving on to Obamacare. Now, we understand Obamacare, it was a complete cash grab. They're looking for it to bring in revenue. There are taxes intertwined into Obamacare. There's fees. They like to call them fees. They're taxes on everything. Even the penalty, if you do not join, there's a tax. And what we're seeing right now is of course, Obamacare was out there, was developed to help all the uninsured people. But what happened was that Obamacare is too expensive. All those people uninsured, it was because they couldn't afford it. Now they look at Obamacare and the uninsured go, well, it's still too expensive and we still can't afford this. And what is the benefit we're getting from this? We're not really getting anything. And right now, a new McKinsey and Company report finds that Obamacare's purported purpose, providing coverage for the previously uninsured, has completely failed. The report concludes that 74% of Obamacare enrollees at the end of the first open enrollment period already had insurance. Just 26 reported being previously uninsured. So this really didn't do what they wanted it to do. Of course it didn't. The McKinsey and Company study also revealed that nearly half, 48% of individuals who said they do not plan to enroll in 2015 were unaware of the penalty for lack of coverage. The so-called individual mandate imposes graduated penalties, and that means it goes up every single year, on individuals who choose not to purchase care. Even after respondents were informed of the penalty, only 29% of those currently uninsured said they plan to enroll in 2015 because they just can't afford it. Let's just put this in perspective here. If we have, right now, let's say 30% unemployment. That's the low figure right now. I know the government's out there telling us it's 6.3%, and we know this is completely fake, phony, false, and it's an illusion. So all these people who are unemployed, or now we also have underemployed, they are not going to take their extra funds where they're using it for rent and food and pay for insurance where they're still going to have to take out money from their pocket to pay for the doctor because their deductible is too high. They haven't met it. So if you have a $5,000 deductible and you're paying $500 a month for your health insurance, you're going to continually pay out of your pocket until you reach $5,000. And if you never meet it, it just resets next year. So there is no benefit for these people, and they don't have the extra funds to do it, so they're not going to do it. The youth of America, where they thought a lot of money was going to come in to Obamacare from the youth, it's not happening. Why? Because they don't have jobs. And those that do have jobs are getting their health benefits from where? Of course, the job. And those people who are working part-time, they have student debt. They don't have extra money, and they're young, and in their minds is, when do I ever get sick? I don't need this. And when I was young, that's how I thought. I know a lot of young people that they don't even give two thoughts about health insurance. So they're not seeing the revenue increase from the youth of America at this time. Okay, now, out in the EU, in the UK, it looks like they're going to put a tracker chip in every single car. Under EU plans, every new car sold in UK will have a black box. They're doing the same thing here in the United States. Gadget contains a phone-like SIM card which tracks drivers' movements, designed to help, of course, for emergency purposes, but you know that this will not only be for emergencies. The government will also use it to track you, to know where you are. Just like the NSA spying is just for terrorists, and we understand that it wasn't just for terrorists, it was for everybody. So all of this is going to be Big Brother looking at every single person, and they need to track where everyone goes. It's not just here in the United States, it's everywhere, because they realize when this system starts to crumble apart, they need to know who these people are that's going to be a threat to their authority, and they need to get them with lists, just like we saw in the Ukraine. The people out in Donetsk and Slavensk, we saw that the local police authorities there had lists of people that they handed over to the anti-terrorism forces, and they went after those people who are going to pose a threat to the Kiev government. And we can see the same thing that's going to happen in Europe, in UK, and in the United States, and pretty much everywhere there is a private Western central bank. So this is not going to be an isolated thing. And of course, out in the EU, this new device is going to be it's called eCall, and it's going to be implemented by October 2015. And this is when they're trying to have every single car fitted with this. The United States, all the new cars there already have a black box. Insurance already taps into it. And, of course, we know that Big Brother also taps into it. Now, it looks like in Venezuela, we're seeing the same type of playbook scenario that we saw in Ukraine and in Syria. The United States is providing arms to the terrorist organizations that attempt to fuel the political unrest gripping Venezuela at this time. While the U.S. demands democracy, and so in Venezuela, the United States is arming these terrorist organizations which have set fire to public buildings, killed dozens of people, and build huge barricades in the streets and use fascist gangs that are proven to be financed from abroad, specifically the United States government. So we can see all of this is happening in every single area. We're seeing it happen in Venezuela. Of course, they have a lot of oil. They would love to get in there, set up a private Western central bank, and put that oil on the U.S. dollar to prop the system up for a little bit longer so they can get this war started. What we're seeing here with Russia and China at this time, Russia and China are finally ready to sign this 30-year gas deal, and this is a long-term deal which will be the delivery of Russian gas to China that has been 10 years in the making. They're 98% done. All they need right now is a signature. Now, down in Africa, China is now making a deal with Africa in Kenya to create a 3.8 billion rail link between Kenya's Indian Ocean port of Mombasa and Nairobi, the first stage of the line that will eventually link Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. Under the terms of the agreement, Exim Bank of China will provide 90% of the cost. So we can see that China is taking the U.S. dollars, bringing it into Africa, building up the infrastructure. And this is why we see the United States there, because anywhere China is, that's where the United States is. They cannot let them take control of Central Africa. Why? Because they have petroleum, they have natural resources, they have gold, they have all the things that they need. And I'm talking about the United States central bankers to continually prop up this U.S. dollar. But China has been making deals. They have a clearinghouse in Kenya for the yuan. Other nations in Africa right now are removing the dollar from the reserves and bringing in the yuan and the yuan is going to be used as their currency of trade. And this is slowly happening, and this is continually building. China is down there. Construction for this rail line is going to start in October, and it should take about 3.5 years to complete the construction completely. And we can see that the United States central bankers really don't want any of this to happen. They've been pushing and pushing into this region to stop it. This is why they're going into Nigeria right now. They're using this entire kidnapped girl crisis as a way to get troops into the area, and soon what we will see is them saying that, you know, we have to close some embassies. Actually, we're putting up some travel restrictions because there seems to be fighting with this group that has kidnapped the girls. It's getting out of hand. Now other Al-Qaeda factions are joining in, and now it's getting blown out of proportion, and we'll see this ramp up as time goes on, and we will see all of a sudden they will call in more and more forces into the area, and before you know it, the United States central bankers are down in Nigeria, and there is a war going on. And then you'll hear about peace talks and things like that. Now, out in Ukraine, we understand they had a referendum on May 11th. They voted with a huge turnout to secede from Ukraine, and this is what they're doing right now. And of course, the United States is not recognizing the referendum whatsoever. They're saying this is completely illegal, and the United States said on Monday it does not recognize the illegal referendum held over the weekend in East Ukraine. And the State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki said that the vote organized by pro-Russian elements in Donetsk and Lugansk was an attempt to create further division and disorder in the country. She also went on to say that the methodology was also highly suspect, with reports of pre-marked ballots. Now, on Saturday, I did an overview of what happened there. They said they caught this heavily armed group of men carrying pre-marked ballots, and they were heavily armed, but they were able to capture them without a shot being fired. And then they showed pictures of two men on the ground with plastic bags over their heads to show that, yes, these are the people. And it just seemed a little too convenient that they had all these stackfuls of pre-registration forms. There wasn't a shot fired, but they were heavily armed, and they just showed pictures of two people on the ground with bags over their head. And they're using this as propaganda to say, yes, this is what happened. And of course, they're using other things, like they had children vote, they had this happen. And these are the people saying, listen, we want to be separate and apart from Kiev, just like when we saw the coup d'etat using firebombs and shooting with snipers, and the United States was backing that group at that time because they controlled them and paid them, to say, listen, they want freedom and democracy. Now all of a sudden the people in these regions want freedom and democracy, and they're not allowed to have it. And of course they're called terrorists at this time, the people of Donetsk and Lugansk. Now, since Donetsk seceded from Ukraine, they are giving the Ukrainian army, which is not really Ukrainian army, a lot of it is paid mercenaries, Blackwater, Academia, or whatever they call them at this time, and they're giving them an ultimatum to leave in 48 hours or face war. They want the paid mercenaries, Ukrainian army, out of the region because they have no right to be there at this time. And Donetsk right now is starting up their own anti-terrorism operations and going after Ukrainian who try to come into the region and try to aggravate the situation at this time. Now, at the same time that all this is happening, the United States is having a countrywide nuclear drill, almost like what Russia was having just the other day. The U.S. Strategic Command, the agency responsible for country's nuclear arsenal, will hold large-scale war games this week that will include 10 B-52 Stratofortresses and up to 6 B-2 Spirit bombers, along with other military and government agencies. The exercise will be conducted from May 12th to the 16th and is set to deter and detect strategic attacks against the U.S. and its allies. This exercise provides unique training opportunities to incorporate the most current technology and techniques in support of our mission. Continued focus and investment in our strategic capabilities allow U.S. Stratcom to deter, dissuade, and defeat current and future threats to the U.S. and our allies. And this is coming from Admiral Cecil Haney. So we can see they are prepping, they are getting ready, they're having their drills. Russia flexed their muscles, the United States is flexing their muscles. Now, in my past reports, I said there's most likely paid mercenaries, and I keep saying it because I know they are there. And now we find out, and we understand that Saudi Arabia was sending in paid mercenaries into Ukraine, and now we see there's about 400 elite commandos of notorious U.S. private security firm Academy, which is also Blackwater, and they're involved in the operations in Ukraine's new government against the people of Donetsk, Lugansk, Kharkov, and according to a German newspaper, it is confirmed that yes, there are paid mercenaries there. And you know that they're bringing in weapons, they're funding them through the $1 billion that was given to Ukraine from the United States. The money from the IMF, a portion of that is going to these paid mercenaries. This is why they're bringing in the money. This is why we see all this happening, because they knew the Ukrainian army would not be able to do what these people are capable of doing, and this is why they needed the paid mercenaries in there. And this is why we see the false flag events with the burning of the city council building, and we see people being shot at point-blank range, making it look like they died of smoke inhalation and fire when they really didn't. They were trying to provoke Russia into doing something, and that entire maneuver didn't work, and of course they just killed innocent people inside the building. Now, we understand the United States, their whole game was to capture Ukraine, and they wanted to have the ability to control the ports in Crimea and to have ships in the Black Sea. And an analyst said that the U.S. is seeking to deprive Russia's access to the Black Sea amid the crisis in Ukraine. They wanted to try to block them out completely of this entire area. And right now, of course, that didn't work out. And we can see that Russia has more control now of the Black Sea, because now they actually have the ports in Crimea because it's part of Russia at this time. Now, Kerry is out there and he's saying that we wasted a year in Syria. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says the United States and its allies have wasted a year in Syria by failing to coordinate efforts to overthrow Assad. And Kerry lamented that the lack of coordination had dramatically set back the drive to remove Assad from power. And we can see what is happening at this point in time. They are funneling anti-aircraft, anti-tank weapons. They've been training people in Qatar and in Jordan. They are getting ready to make their final push and move into Syria at this time. And of course, the FBI Director James Comey is out there, and he's saying that all the evidence that he's seeing right now is pointing to another 9/11 type of an event that is headed our way, and most likely it will be coming from Syria. And he can saying that because of Syria being the launch pad for Al-Qaeda, we can see that something is being planned, something's being maneuvered to have something happen here in the United States. And he's saying that this will be coming very soon as things start to break apart and Assad gains more and more power. In Syria, we can see something happening here in the United States. And of course, they're building and building this up, and they're telling us that something will be coming. We don't know how or when, but it will be some type of a 9/11 event. And we understand that they need this event to completely cover up this economic collapse, and they also need to make their power move into Syria, and this will be the way they will be able to do it at this time. Now, DHS is allowing terror suspects into the country, and Senator Grassley is seeking more information about DHS's hands-off list. The Department of Homeland Security secretly assembled a terrorist hands-off list that permitted individuals with terrorist ties unfettered entrance into the United States. Now, I did this report quite a while where I said they're bussing them in, and this is still going on. They're having these people, of course, because they're going to stage this event here in the country, and they need them inside the country already to push these plans forward, because they're going to hit many, many spots all at once. And this is going to come, with cyber attacks, chemical weapons, most likely a nuclear type of device. And we can see that they're bringing these people in. They know they're bomb makers. They know what's going on because they are setting up the next event. Now, what's very interesting here is the U.S. State Department has ordered hundreds of pounds of plastic explosives and thousands of containers of liquid explosives. WND has discovered shipping them to location of U.S. centers that typically send sensitive materials to overseas embassies. Very interesting that they will be sending this over to embassies around the world. And we can see how they can use this to manipulate and create a false flag event with explosions in certain areas near the embassies or inside the embassies. According to a procurement document WND obtained, State recently put in 4 separate orders for high explosives. Purchases accompanied by tens of thousands of feet of detonating cords with hundreds of blasting caps and fuse igniters. The ultimate destination of these products and their cost is unknown at this time, but the government contracting office responsible for arranging the purchases has an address in Lund Loring, Virginia, site of the State Diplomatic Security Field Office, which is tasked with sending secure pouches and crates to U.S. embassies and consulates worldwide. Deliveries made through the unit are exempt from the inspections that normally happens. So they're completely exempt, and they would have no idea that there are explosions or anything in these type of packages or crates. State specifically is purchasing and sending to Sterling, Virginia, 450 pounds of C4 M12 explosives, nearly 2,600 containers of liquid explosives, 188 feet of linear-shaped charges, and more than 8,000 blasting caps. So we can see from this that something is going to happen here. They are maneuvering, they're ordering explosives, and they're being sent around the world to the embassies. Why would they be doing this? Why would they need all of this explosives being maneuvered and transferred to embassies? The only reason you would need something like this is to create some type of false flag event. To say, look, this country has attacked our embassy here. Look, Russia attacked the embassy in this region. And we can see how they'll pull this whole entire false flag event together. Now, this might be coupled with events that are occurring here in the United States, because you have to remember, let's think back to a report that I did quite a while ago where they said that Syria is the launching pad for terrorists, and they see a lot of these terrorists moving into Europe. We see terrorists moving into the United States. This could be all set up for embassies to explode in certain areas in Europe, in the UK, and have things happen here in the United States to bring all of these powers into war status, to maneuver and to move forward with the war agenda. So we can see that this is starting to shape up. We see that we're starting to connect all the dots right now, and we can see we're moving closer and closer to what they are planning. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.